Slide 288, Pre-Startup Safety Review, the PSSR or PSUA, Pre-Startup Safety Audit. The learning objective. After completing this module, the student will have an understanding that the Pre-Startup Safety Review originates in the OSHA regulations concerning process safety, with the sequence of activities leading to a successful PSSR that should ensure a safe startup of the facility. Process Safety Management in accordance with OSHA Regulation 3132 for Process Safety Management or PSM. The owner or operator shall follow established procedures and observe specific requirements leading to the startup of a plant or facility. Refer to the embedded file for details of how to conduct a process hazard analysis. Table 1 of OSHA's PSM regulation. The employer shall perform a pre-startup safety review for new facilities and for modified facilities when the modification is significant enough to require a change in the process safety information. Table 1 of the regulation. The pre-startup safety review shall confirm that prior to the introduction of highly hazardous chemicals to a process, 1. That construction and equipment is in accordance with design specifications. 2. That safety, operating, maintenance and emergency procedures are in place and adequate. And 3. For new facilities, a process hazard analysis has been performed and its recommendations have been resolved or implemented before startup. And modified facilities meet the requirements contained in Management of Change, paragraph 1 of this regulation. Table 2 of the OSHA PSM. For new processes, the employer will find a process hazard analysis helpful in improving the design and construction of the process from a reliability and quality point of view. The safe operation of the new process will be enhanced by making use of the PHA recommendations before final installations are completed. P&ID drawings are to be completed along with having the operating procedures in place and the operating staff trained to run the process before startup. The initial startup procedures and normal operating procedures need to be fully evaluated as part of the pre-startup review to ensure a safe transfer into the normal operating mode for meeting the process parameters. Table 2 of OSHA PSM. For existing processes that have been shut down or turned around or modification, etc., the employer must ensure that any changes other than replacement in kind made to the process during shutdown go through the Management of Change procedures. P&ID drawings will need to be updated as necessary, as well as operating procedures and instructions. If the changes made to the process during shutdown are significant and impact the training program, then all employees engaged in routine and non-routine work in the process area may need some refresher or additional training in light of the changes. Any incident investigation recommendations, compliance audits, or PHA recommendations need to be reviewed as well to see what impacts they may have on the process before beginning the startup. Discussion of the regulation. The first paragraph of the regulation states that a PSSR is needed whenever process safety information, PSI, is changed. In effect, this requirement is such that virtually all changes will have to be reviewed in a PSSR. There are very few changes that do not require some information changes to do with topics such as safe limits, engineering drawings and equipment lists. Construction and equipment. This paragraph requires that construction and equipment is in accordance with design specifications. PSSR team members can carry out spot checks on the installed piping and equipment and compare it with the piping lists and equipment data sheets. Procedures. Paragraph 2 requires that the facility's procedures reflect the manner in which the facility is to be operated after the process changes have been made. The PSSR should check that safety, operating and emergency procedures for the new operation have been written down and that they accurately describe what has to be done. This paragraph does not mention training, but it can be assumed that operators and maintenance workers must be trained in the use of the new procedures. Paragraph 3. New or modified facilities. The regulation requires that new facilities conduct a PHA, or a process hazard analysis, and that the PSSR team should check that the PHA was in fact carried out and that its recommendations were either resolved or implemented. During the pressure of construction, there is sometimes a tendency to postpone some of the PHA recommendations until there is sufficient time. The PSSR should check that the recommendations have all been closed out properly. Slide 298, Management of Change and Audits. The way in which PSSR, MOCs and audits link to one another is demonstrated in Figure 1. This is a simplified diagram showing the way the MOC process feeds into the PSSR process. Make lessons learned become best practices. Now, and at key stages in the life cycle of a project, we have the opportunity for capturing the lessons to be learned and enabling them to become best practices. Document and embed the ideas that follow in the learning organisation through training, modified work practices, processes and procedures.